Good morning and welcome to the Premier EVV webinar. We will get started. So we will be going over the training objectives for this presentation. During this training, we will review the basics of EVV, what it is, its purpose, what data it collects. We will review who is required to use EVV, discuss the importance of compliance with EVV. We will review employee and participant responsibilities, provide an overview of how to use CareTime app, as well as provide tools for support. Some terms and definitions that you'll hear during this presentation are FEA, that is the Fiscal Employment Agent that provides payroll administrative support to individuals self-directing their home care. This would be Premier is the FEA. Participant is the care recipient. Participant hired worker or caregiver is the care provider. CareTime is the application used by Premier to meet the electronic visit verification EVV requirement. Telephony is an alternative option to submit timesheets for those without a mobile device using a landline phone. Live-in is a participant hired worker that lives with the participant according to DHS definition. Non-live-in is a participant hired worker that does not live with the participant and is required to use EVV. So what is EVV? EVV, electronic visit verification, is a system that uses technology to capture 6 key data points. Those are who receives the service, who provides the service, what service is provided, where the service is provided, the date of service, and the check-in and check-out times of the service. Whenever performing services that required EVV, participant hired workers should log or call in to CareTime mobile application or telephony at 888-565-2035. The services that are required for EVV are the T1019 personal care and the S5125 and S5126 supportive home cares. So who is required in the IRIS program? Participant hired workers are for live-in workers are not required to use EVV. For the purpose of EVV, DHS defines a live-in worker as a worker who meets one of the following scenarios: permanently residing in the same residence as the participant receiving services, permanently residing in a 2-residence dwelling like a duplex where the participant receiving services lives in the other half of the dwelling and is a relative of the participant receiving services. A relative is defined as a person related of any degree by blood, adoption, or marriage. And a participant who resides at regular scheduled intervals at the separate homes of both parents or guardian. Both parents or guardian are considered live-in workers for purposes of EVV. So that would be if the participant is the child and lives regularly at both parents' residences, both parents would be considered live-in workers. To show permanent residency, a participant hired worker will need to provide documentation of their current address. For further information on live-in worker documentation requirements, you can see the IRIS Participant Hired Worker Relationship Identification Form, and we have a link to that on our website as well as this presentation. This form must be completed at any time a live-in worker is added to a participant's plan. Workers must notify Premier within 7 days of any change in living situation. The participant must attest to no changes in live-in worker status during the annual plan renewal process to maintain the live-in exception status. When a live-in worker provides services to more than one participant they permanently reside with, their status as a live-in worker must be validated for each participant. As the employer, the participant is required to communicate payroll and worker updates to Premier. If the participant hired worker is unwilling or unable to provide live-in documentation, they will be considered non-live-in for EVV purposes and will be required to use EVV. So just an overview, non-live-in participant hired workers that provide personal care or supportive home care are required to use EVV. What is required? The 21st Century Cures Act is a federal law that was passed in 2016. It requires each state, including Wisconsin, to collect visit information using electronic visit verification EVV system. The law helps to make sure that members and participants receive the in-home services they need. If Wisconsin Department of Health Services, DHS, does not follow this law, Wisconsin will lose money for Medicaid services. So EVV is required for Medicaid-covered personal care services. Specifically impacted services are those billed under HCPCS procedure codes, the T1019 personal care, and the S5125 routine supportive home care per 15 minutes and S5126 routine supportive home care per day. So there are some potential consequences of noncompliance. Live-in participant hired workers are not required to capture EVV information. All other participant hired workers must use CareTime or Telephony to collect information about their visits. If they fail to do so, the participant could be disenrolled from IRIS. A participant hired worker who does not meet EVV requirement risks being terminated. Workers must have 80% accuracy with EVV system to be compliant. If Premier edits a shift on the behalf of the worker, it is no longer considered compliant, as well as if the worker or participant make those edits. And edits can be for the time being changed, the service code, any edit to that shift would be non-compliant. So the Wisconsin Department of Health Services needs you and your participant hired workers, except live-in workers, to follow this federal requirement so you can remain enrolled in IRIS, continue to hire your workers directly, keep the care you need. You will no longer meet IRIS program requirements if your employees are not using an EVV system as required for dates of service after May 1st, 2023. If you are not meeting program requirements, you will eventually be disenrolled from IRIS program and your IRIS services will end. And we do have the link for the IRIS EVV policy. Employees will continue to be paid for hours worked up to the date of disenrollment. So once again, non-live-in participant hired workers who refuse to meet EVV requirement risk being terminated. While a worker may lose their job for failing to meet EVV requirements, they will be paid for the shifts that they worked while employed by the participant. If workers fail to meet the EVV requirement, the following process will assist participants to meet their EVV-related responsibilities. So the non-compliance process is if an FEA, such as Premier, needs to edit a participant hired worker's EVV visit, for example, adding or correcting a check-in or checkout time or date, it will reduce the worker's accuracy rate. Workers are expected to accurately use EVV at least 80% of the time, and that 80% is per pay period. Premier will provide IRIS consultants with reports regarding missing EVV information on a bi-weekly basis. The reports will list workers who have not achieved a minimum of 80% accuracy per pay period. If workers are not meeting the EVV requirement, the IRIS consultant will follow up with the participant at the next monthly contact. The IRIS consultant will ensure the participant understands EVV requirements and knows where to find EVV resources to assist workers who are not using the EVV system. IRIS consultants should inform participants that if their workers have not demonstrated compliance with EVV, a risk agreement will be put in place during the next monthly contact. So if a worker continues to not use EVV as required, the IRIS consultant will complete the risk agreement. Further, the IRIS consultant will make sure the participant understands their options, which include hiring a new worker, firing a current worker, hiring a provider agency, or choosing to receive personal care from fee-for-service medical assistance personal care instead of the IRIS. The IRIS consultant will review EVV compliance reporting provided by Premier prior to the participant's next monthly contact to determine if the participant hired worker is meeting the EVV requirements. If the worker is not meeting those requirements at the next monthly contact, the IRIS consultant will confirm the participant's decision on whether the participant has selected to hire a different worker, use a provider agency, or switch to the MAPC instead of IRIS. At the following monthly contact, if the steps listed above have not resulted in a worker using EVV as required with the 80% accuracy, and the participant has not switched to a provider agency or MAPC or hired a different worker, then the IRIS consultant will disenroll the participant for failure to comply with the program requirements. Individuals who are disenrolled can work with their local aging and disability resource center to find different options for care needed. So some of the worker responsibilities are accessing and reviewing EVV training material, checking in and checking out with CareTime or Telephony for each visit, communicate with Premier and the participant when the participant hired worker needs to correct a check-in or check-out time, or to report power outages that last longer than 24 hours. So some worker responsibilities. It's important to ensure that they are compliant with EVV by clocking in at the start of their shift on CareTime or Telephony, making sure location services are turned on to capture GPS, use the correct and authorized activity codes, clocking out at the end of their shift on CareTime or Telephony, and ensuring the shifts are syncing on the CareTime app. And you can see an image here of the CareTime app with, you can see the little arrows at the top and it says sync in a purple box here. So that is how you would sync the shift. Next to that is the image that shows if the shift is synced or not synced. So to make sure a shift has synced after clocking out, you would scroll to the bottom of your screen and you'll see completed today. You want to look for that check mark. If you see an exclamation, that means the shift has not synced. Then you would need to either find a better internet connection, connect to Wi-Fi, or locate a spot where your cellular internet data has better connection, and then hit that sync button, the blue icon with the two arrows going in a circle. So some of the participant responsibilities. The participant is the worker's employer. They are responsible for making sure their workers follow IRIS policy. Some pointers for that is to ensure the participant hired workers receive EVV training, ensure EVV check-in and check-out is completed by the worker at the beginning and end of each visit, review and edit any timesheets that are needed for corrections, but be aware this will cause noncompliance, so you want to try to avoid that when possible. review EVV information with the workers to reinforce the requirement to use EVV. This may include verifying the workers' check-in and check-out times. And lastly, communicate landline numbers to Premier if using a telephone-based EVV system. So this screen goes over the dashboard view of the care portal, which is used by the participant to monitor the worker's EVV utilization. They can see how many shifts were submitted and compare it to how many shifts their worker provided service. You can see how many times a shift was edited, making it non-compliant. So on this dashboard view, you'll see the current pay period and the last pay period. You will be able to view the total duration, which is the total number of hours the worker has clocked in for, total visits, which is the total number of shifts that the worker has clocked in for, total edited, which is the number of shifts that were edited either by the worker, participant, or Premier, and the total schedules, which Premier does not require schedules. So there may not be information on that box. On the care portal, the participant will click on timesheets, and this will bring them to the timesheets view. This is where the participant will approve all submitted timesheets on time to make sure their worker is paid timely. You can see any timesheets requiring action by logging into the care portal and selecting the timesheets and then reviewing the reminder, which you see in the red box here. So in this red box, it will show the reminder for any approval or edits that are needed. When you click on the orange or red for approval or edit needed, it will give you the specific date that is requiring the edit or approval. So for the CareTime app for the worker, there is an image that shows the login screen. The mobile app login will require agency code, user code, and date of birth to log in. The agency code is specific to Premier, and that is the 1566. The user code will be provided to the caregiver from Premier, and then the date of birth, which is in the month, day, and year format. To clock in on the mobile app, the worker will click on the participant name under either assigned jobs or jobs nearby. The next screen will be where the worker will click clock in at the bottom. And then there will be a pop-up that says, are you sure you wish to clock in? You would select yes. And then just be sure there is a check mark to ensure this clocked in has synced. If you are not at your client's address, you may see a pop-up when you are trying to clock in. You'll see alert according to your current GPS location. You're not close enough to the job in order to clock in. If there is a Bluetooth EVV device installed at the home, you may use that to clock in by clicking on Scan Bluetooth or by location exception if that option is enabled for the job. You would select OK, and then on the next screen, select location exception. And then the next screen, you will need to enter a reason by a drop down, whichever is closest to the reason you are entering that location exception, and then select save. And this will allow you to clock in. With a clock in, you will then enter an activity code, which is the service that you are providing. For personal care, that is the code 14. So you would enter 14. Or for supportive home care, non-live-in, you would enter code 5. So you would enter a 5 and then select check and then save. And then be sure always that there's a check mark to ensure that the shift has successfully clocked in. For Clocking out, you would complete the same process, tapping on the client under clocked in jobs, and then clock out. You may see care plan tasks if that is selected for your settings, but it is not a required option. Always ensure after clocking out to scroll to the bottom and view the completed today and ensure that check mark is there. Once again, if you see an exclamation, you want to go to a place with stronger connection or Wi-Fi, and then select the sync button at the top. With clocking out, you will be required to enter signatures by the client and the employee, and select save to confirm that shift was completed. Just a reminder, this is not approval for timesheets. This is just confirming the clock out was completed. With the CareTime app, you are able to add or edit time cards. You would want to make sure that you have the most recent app version to be able to access this feature. You would go to the menu, which is the three bars in the top corner, and then select hours worked. And then you would be able to select add shift at the bottom of the screen. After that, you will see your participants' information, which you'll click on. And then the next screen, you'll be able to enter the clock in, date, and time, and select save. And then enter the clock out, date, and time, and select save. When adding or editing a shift, you will need to enter a reason code. This is right under the clock in or clock out section and right above the tasks. So you'll click right there and select from the drop down for the reason. And then the next screen will allow you to enter that activity code, and you will have the signatures. And finally, you'll be asked to save changes. So this goes over an overview on how to edit a shift. You would once again go to that menu and then select hours worked. At the top, you can select the date range if you need to change that, and then select apply. Under, you will see the dates listed for the shifts that you are able to edit. You would select the shift that you want to edit by selecting the edit button. The next screen will allow you to either edit the clocked in or clocked out, and then, of course, put that reason underneath. So right under the clock in and clock out edit spot, you will enter that reason and then save changes. Premiere will only enable shifts edits for up to 90 days. If the shift was more than 90 days ago, you will not be able to edit. You will need your participant or Premiere to make that edit for you if it is needed. Premiere will allow for up to 2 shift edits per shift. So if you need to edit one shift more than 2 times, you'll be unable to make that edit. Once again, you'll have to go to your participant or Premiere for assistance with that. If the shift appears in bright red on your hours worked, it has been inactivated and cannot be edited. Only Premiere can activate a shift, so if you need that completed, you would need to contact Premiere. Our app is also available in Spanish. You would go to the menu where you can select the language. So for our telephony option, if you are unable to use a mobile app or you do not have a tablet or mobile device, you can use the telephony option if your participant has a landline phone. The participant must register their landline phone with Premier as an authorized number for telephony to work. The telephony is a backup option for employees who are not able to use the mobile app to clock in and out so they can meet their EVV compliance. Employees can use the member employer's phone and follow the steps below. To clock in, the employee would dial the number listed, 888-565-2035, enter the employee code, which is the same code that you would have for the mobile app, and then press pound. The employee would enter their activity code and then confirm by pressing 1. And then to clock out, the employee would dial that same number, 888-565-2035, enter the employee code and press pound, and then confirm by pressing 1. If the worker is submitting time using the telephony, the participant must still use CareTime portal to approve the timesheets. So the mobile app login is given, the information is given to the worker. The agency code and caregiver's employee code will need to be accurately entered to access the CareTime app. The agency code, once again, is 1566. The employee user code is a 6-digit number that is given to the caregiver from Premier, and then the date of birth would be required to log in as well. When the app asks for permission to share location, the worker must select yes in order for the app to use GPS to verify their location. Location is one of the 6 federally required elements of EVV. If location is not provided, it is not EVV compliant. Workers must also enter the correct activity code. The participant or Premier can provide the correct activity code. So once again, going over syncing the shift on the app, always ensure there's that check mark after clocking out. If you are unable to view that check mark and you see an exclamation, just be sure that you are connected to Wi-Fi or you have a stronger signal, and then select the sync shift. The app does require internet to log into the app, but it does not require internet to clock in and clock out. So as long as the worker logs in at a place where they have a strong connection, they would be able to open the app as long as it stays open in the background, open that app once they get to the residence. Even without internet or Wi-Fi, they would be able to clock in and clock out. And then once they get back to a place where they have strong connection, open that app and sync the shift. You just want to be sure not to close that out completely. So some CareTime troubleshooting. If a worker is unable to log in, just make sure that they are entering credentials correctly. Typos are common. Confirm your date of birth is entered correctly in CareTime. You may need to give Premier a call and just verify your date of birth. Make sure you are connected to the internet to log in. Connection is required for logging in. If you're still unable to log in, you can call Premier and they will be able to help. If you log in and you see don't see any jobs nearby, make sure that your GPS permissions have been enabled for the CareTime app. Ensure you're at the correct location, and you may need to look into recalibrating your phone's GPS. So once again, just going over the GPS information that can resolve any issues with trying to clock in. Also, if the worker's app or participant's portal is not loading, the app or portal is spinning, make sure there's internet connection, close out and log out, and then try again, and maybe use another device if available. So we do have a short video, and this goes over how to add, edit, and approve time cards. This is also available on our Premier website. And then just some frequently asked questions. What if I don't have a smartphone or tablet? The worker can use the telephony option. The participant must approve timesheets by using CareTime Care Portal. I am a participant, but I don't have a smartphone or tablet. How can I view my worker's time? The care portal can be accessed on a computer. What if I don't have internet, mobile data access? The worker can use the telephony option. The participant must approve timesheets on the care portal website. Also, reminder, the CareTime app does not require internet or mobile data. If you are able to log in at a place where you do have internet, you can still keep that open in the background, go to your participant's location and clock in and out, and then just leave that open in the background. So when you get back to a place with internet, you can open the app and it will record that shift. What if I clock in a few minutes early or a few minutes late? The participant and worker can edit the shift. Just note, editing a shift does mean it is no longer 100% compliant. Does a participant need to register for the worker to use telephony? Yes, the participant must add their landline number to the authorized number list by calling Premier. What is the toll-free number if a worker cannot use the CareTime app? So telephony number is 888-565-2035. Do I need to clock in separately for each service provided? Yes, each activity code must be recorded separately. So you would clock in with your personal care and then clock out and then clock back in for the supportive home care and then clock out. What if I provide services outside the home? If you are not at the participant's home at the time of clocking in, you will be prompted to enter a location exception and a reason. So if you need to run errands or need to take the participant to a doctor's appointment, you can still clock in. You would just use that location exception. How do I update my contact information for CareTime? A participant must contact their IRIS consultant to update their contact information, and a worker must complete a change of status form. This can be found on our Premier website. Okay, and then some links for where to go for help. We have our customer service number here, 855-224-5810. You can also register for one-on-one support or check out our Premier website, and we have the link for our EVV information. You can come to our office at 10425 West North Ave, Suite 4345, Wauwatosa. And then we also have a couple of the DHS links and the IRIS participant flyer. And that is all. And I just want to thank everyone for joining our EVV webinar.